average age that a child is taken into trafficking?
So in America, it is very young. It's anywhere between the age of 12 and 14. So slightly younger for boys, so a boy than a prepubescent boy, and a little bit older for girls. So maybe 13 or 14 for a girl, or 12 or 13 for a boy.
How do these kids end up in this situation?
So I guess there'd be 3 or 4 main ways. The first would be through familial trafficking. So individuals or kids who are being trafficked by their mom or their dad. And we should not be naive to think that that doesn't happen here in America. I was shocked when I first found out. But we have parents that are selling their kids right here in this country. So a mom or a dad is selling their child, a brother or a sister, a significant other of a mom or a dad, a step-parent, sometimes an aunt or an uncle. But familial trafficking is usually very close. It's a close family member. It's not a distant uncle. It's not a distant cousin. It really is a parent or a sibling. Another means is through runaways. So you have individuals who run away. It's estimated that there's about 400,000 runaways in America every year. Out of those runaways, anywhere from 20 to 30% of them will fall into trafficking or get groomed and pulled into trafficking within 24 to 48 hours of running away. So you have runaways that most people in America, or most runaways in America, they're not running away from functional, happy families. They're already running away from homes where there's extreme levels of violence, sexual abuse, those types of environments. They'll usually run away anywhere between 10, 12, 14, because a lot of them had been abused from the age of 3, 4, and 5 in their own home. And then when they get to an age where they think they could make better choices on the street, they'll run away. So you're talking those preteen years. And then what will happen is a runaway on the street will meet somebody who is kind, caring, doting, loving, provides. The individual on the street will really be the replacement parent, what they didn't have in their own home. And usually it takes only about 3 or 4 weeks of care, and then that individual will pretty much just flip a switch, show their true colors, and then they become the trafficker. But the child then has no forms of recourse. I mean, oftentimes they can't even escape from their trafficker, but even if they would have an opportunity, they go back to, they stay with this trafficker who at some point had showed love and compassion, or they return to what they came from, which was the same level of abuse. So that's those individuals. And that's anywhere from about 100,000 kids every year. So if you start to think about this in terms of numbers and growing, you have roughly 100,000 kids just through runaways falling into trafficking, and falling into trafficking makes it seem like you took a wrong turn and something happened. Again, this is a death sentence for them. But you have 100,000 kids. Let's just say we start here in 2020, or last year, 2019, 100,000 kids came into trafficking. Well, they're not all going to die this year. There'll be another 100,000 in 2020. So now you have 200,000 kids in trafficking, and then there's 2021. And if the life expectancy is 7 to 10 years, by the time you get just 7 years in, and we're well past 7 years in, by the time you get 7 years in, you're close to 1 million kids, and it just continues that cycle. So let me get back to the question: familial trafficking of runaways. But then there's also there's a growing trend of, and it has happened in the past. I would say it's happening more now than it has in the past, because traffickers have just become so emboldened. I would say there's kids coming out of functioning homes, living in 2-parent households, who are being targeted and groomed by a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a significant other, or a friend. And that's what's really scary, because the profit is so high that, and this is why I talk about being emboldened, traffickers are so bold to target my children, or your child, your children, your grandchildren, because there's little risk of being found out. If they think they're going to be found out or something is going to go south, they'll just move on to a next targeted victim. But the return is so great. So for every individual being trafficked, every child being trafficked, every child being sold, they're earning upwards of $300,000 every year for this trafficker. So a trafficker, a pimp, is going to put in time, and by time I mean 7, 8, 9 months or a year, to target your child, your niece, your nephew, and earn their trust, and really infiltrate themselves into your family and understanding everything about your family, just to turn and begin to sell that individual once they have a certain level of trust, once they have enough information to coerce and to threaten, your child that they're now trafficking. And that's happening at astounding levels.
An online predator as well, right?
Oh, yes. And then so the last then is online predator, whether it's happening through social media. And so that's also happening. A lot of predators are using social media to target and to groom kids in functioning households. So there's familial trafficking, there's the trafficking of runaways, and then there's this very targeted effort to single out individuals and groom them, whether it's through social media or just day-to-day interaction through relationships.
So what are some basic steps that a family can do to protect their child?
So I think the number one thing is to talk to your child about the reality of this happening. I'm not about to say that there aren't, great guys out there in America. But if you have a 17 or an 18-year-old boyfriend that's slightly older who is just doting on your child and buying them gifts and just really seeming to be too good to be true, they probably are too good to be true. And so I would encourage parents to be heavily involved in their child's life, and not just to talk to their child about the reality of trafficking, and that while it feels good, I was a young girl at one time. It felt awesome when someone thought that I was beautiful and lovely and they would do anything for me. But a lot of that is just lies. So you need to tell your daughter or even your son in a loving manner, you're not that great. Like someone is feeding you these lines because they're going to want something from you, And again, I'm not trying to discount real courtship or real love, whatever you want to call it, but there's a lot of just fake stuff out there going on. Fake stuff out there going on. Fake stuff out there going on. Fake stuff out there going on, and all of it is grooming and trying to earn someone's trust, and so I would be very cautious. Talk to your child about the reality of what trafficking is and how anybody is susceptible to this. It's not just somebody who's naive. It's not somebody who doesn't know certain things. It's not somebody who's not so worldly, whatever term you want to say. It's everybody. I would also be heavily involved in their social media. If to protect your child, get involved in their text conversations. Get involved. I have seen and I have witnessed and I have heard far too many stories about kids being trafficked right underneath their parents' noses and their parents not knowing anything about it because they're giving their child some level of privacy and they trust their child. Well, your child probably is trustworthy, but the rest of the world is not. So it's your job to be that barrier, that protection. And it's not, I'm assuming that this video is mostly seen by church-going individuals and probably very conservative people. Here's what's sad. Very conservative people, their children are easy targets, especially in churches, because we're taught to trust people. And if someone is showing up and coming to church, be kind, trust people, love people. And I'm saying, no. Don't be rude. Don't be offensive. But just because somebody says the right things, that doesn't mean it's coming from a right place. There's also this culture in Christianity, which I hope I'm not stepping on any toes. You could edit it out if I am. But there's this culture in Christianity that young girls need to grow up to be nice. And I want my daughters to be nice. I don't want them to be rude and offensive. But I don't want to continue to tell my children, you need to be so nice so that when something is, you don't have eyes open to see what's really happening. And so, I'm telling my children, you don't have to be so nice. If a man says hello to my children, if they either don't know them or they don't feel comfortable, they don't have to answer back. Until, they can't be rude. If it's somebody that we know that we trust as parents, they have to obviously say that. But sometimes also, when it comes to relationships, and I know what it says in the Bible about, and I believe that a husband is submissive to his wife. But that's in a marriage relationship. Oftentimes we teach that so strongly that our young girls think they have to be submissive to a boyfriend. why does a girl have to be submissive to a boyfriend? There's nothing in the Bible about that, right? But sometimes those messages get skewed. So, well, I know that I'm going to grow up and be submissive to my husband, so my boyfriend is saying I have to do this. I'll go along with it and I'll do it too. Those are wrong messages.
I mean, it doesn't mean to compromise your integrity, your values, your worth.
Exactly. Yeah, but again, and I'm not trying to be offensive or step on toes, but I have heard cases of girls being date raped in the church by fellow church members. And so, and I, in conversations with some of them, I'm saying, well, obviously, this is not the girl's fault, but kind of how did this happen? Well, I had lines and he kept pushing them, and I just ultimately went along with it. It's what he wanted. Well, I don't care what he wanted, and of course I'm saying that, but parents are maybe not giving those messages. So as parents, I'm saying, teach your children to be, to have their eyes open, to never compromise their principles, but then also to know accurate biblical principles. Boyfriends do not need to be submitted to, husbands, they do. So it's those different messages. As a parent, be very involved. If your daughter be parents. But dig deep. Find out. Don't just trust the picture that you see that's coming to the church or coming and sitting at your table in your house. Find out who that individual's family is, where they're coming from, who are their associates, what are they doing with their time, how are they earning their money. If somebody's buying your daughter lots of gifts and lots of clothes, where are they getting that money from to do that? So just being overly involved and just being that fence to guard everything that comes through with your children.